Teaching live classroom courses. After nearly a year of teaching, Sarah received an email from a local brokerage. The broker wanted her to teach a 3-hour continuing education class for more than 40 agents. Until now, most of Sarah's classes had been held at the real estate school. She knew the classroom, the technology, and exactly where everything was located. This time would be different. She would be teaching in someone else's conference room to students she had never met, in an environment she had never seen. "I feel like I'm starting over," she admitted to David. He smiled. "No, you're just teaching in a different classroom." When Sarah arrived at the brokerage, she immediately noticed how different the room felt. The chairs were arranged in long rows, making discussion difficult. The projector screen was off to one side, and several students would have to turn in their chairs to see it clearly. The lighting was dim, and the instructor's table blocked the front of the room. Instead of accepting the room as it was, Sarah spent the next 20 minutes rearranging it. She moved the tables into a U-shaped configuration, positioned the projector where everyone had a clear view, tested the lighting, and created enough space to comfortably walk among the students during the presentation. When the first agents arrived, one of them smiled. "This room feels completely different than it usually does." Sarah laughed. "That's exactly what I was hoping." That morning reminded her that the physical classroom is part of the learning experience. Students naturally participate more when they can see both the instructor and one another. Eye contact becomes easier, conversations feel more natural, and the classroom becomes less formal and more interactive. Even small adjustments to seating arrangements can significantly improve participation and engagement. As class began, Sarah didn't immediately open her presentation. Instead, she greeted each student personally, asked a few about their business, and learned the names of several agents before the lesson officially started. By the time everyone was seated, the atmosphere felt relaxed and conversational rather than formal. David had always emphasized that rapport isn't built during the lecture, it's built before the lecture. Students are much more willing to ask questions and participate when they feel the instructor genuinely enjoys teaching and is interested in helping them succeed. That connection often begins with nothing more than a handshake, a smile, or a short conversation before class. Throughout the morning, Sarah paid close attention to the room. When students leaned forward and nodded, she knew the lesson was connecting. When several began looking down at their phones or stopped taking notes, she recognized it was time to change her pace. Sometimes she introduced a story. Other times, she asked a discussion question or walked to the whiteboard to illustrate a concept. Those small changes immediately brought the room back to life. One advantage of teaching in a live classroom is the ability to read your audience in real time. Facial expressions, body language, eye contact, and classroom energy provide constant feedback about whether students understand the material or whether additional explanation is needed. Experienced instructors learn to adjust naturally rather than continuing exactly as planned, regardless of what students are communicating. Sarah also realized that visual teaching aids worked best when they supported the lesson instead of replacing it. A simple timeline helped explain the purchase process. A flowchart clarified agency relationships. Displaying an Arizona purchase contract on the screen made it much easier to explain individual provisions than simply describing them verbally. Every visual had a purpose, and every purpose supported student understanding. As the afternoon continued, Sarah noticed that participation remained high because students felt involved. Rather than delivering a 3-hour lecture, she alternated between stories, practical examples, classroom discussions, contract reviews, and short knowledge checks. Students weren't just listening. They were thinking, answering questions, sharing experiences, and applying what they were learning to actual Arizona transactions. Near the end of class, David quietly asked, "What do you want your students to remember when they leave today?" Sarah smiled because she knew the answer. Not every slide, not every statute, not every story. She wanted them to remember the key concepts that would help them become better real estate professionals. Instead of ending class by simply saying, "Any questions?" she spent the final few minutes reviewing the major lessons, connecting them back to the course objectives, and encouraging students to think about how they would apply those ideas in their own businesses. Several students stayed afterward to continue the discussion. One broker smiled as he packed his notebook. "I've attended a lot of CE classes over the years," he said. "This one actually kept me involved." As they walked to the parking lot, David looked at Sarah. "You know why?" She shook her head. "You didn't just teach the class. You taught the people." That may be the greatest advantage of live classroom instruction. Every class is unique because every group of students is unique. Outstanding instructors recognize those differences, adapt their teaching accordingly, and create learning experiences that respond to the people sitting in front of them. When instructors combine preparation, observation, interaction, and meaningful reinforcement, the classroom becomes far more than a place where information is presented. It becomes a place where students actively learn, grow, and leave prepared to apply their knowledge in the real world. Instructor tip: don't become so focused on your lesson plan that you stop observing your students. The classroom will constantly tell you when it's time to slow down, ask a question, tell a story, or review a concept. Great instructors teach the lesson, but exceptional instructors teach the learners. Question 1. What advantages does live classroom instruction offer that are difficult to duplicate in other learning environments? Answer: live instruction allows instructors to observe student body language, adjust pacing, encourage spontaneous discussion, answer questions immediately, and build personal relationships that increase engagement and improve learning outcomes. Question 2. How can classroom layout influence student participation? Answer: the arrangement of tables and seating affects eye contact, discussion, instructor movement, and overall interaction. A well-designed classroom encourages communication, collaboration, and active participation throughout the lesson. Question 3. Why is it important to conclude each lesson with reinforcement rather than simply ending the class? Answer: reviewing the major concepts helps students organize what they have learned, strengthens long-term retention, and reinforces how the lesson connects to the overall course objectives and real-world practice.